Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going incognito, diving into the world of chatbots.
Yeah,
But not just like the tech behind them, we're talking about how these AI helpers are treating us,
right.
users.
Yeah, it's a really crucial time for this kind of research.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing these AI systems become part of our everyday lives
Oh, absolutely.
so quickly, and we need to
Mhm.
understand
Yeah.
the impact they're having on us directly.
Yeah, and you know how much I love a good aha moment?
Mhm.
Well, get ready for a big one.
Okay.
We went deep into some brand new research from Google AI.
Oh, wow.
And let's just say, you might be surprised to learn that even subtle differences in your name could be leading to different responses from these chatbots.
Really?
Intrigued. Let's break it down.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so.
It's a fascinating area that they're calling first-person fairness.
Oh?
We often hear about AI bias in terms of algorithms making judgments about people, but this research focuses on fairness towards the user interacting with the AI in real time.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. Imagine you're chatting with a chatbot,
Okay.
maybe getting help with writing a story or asking for career advice.
Mm-hmm.
Seems helpful, friendly even, right?
Yeah.
But what if, behind those responses, things are shifting subtly based on whether it thinks you're male or female?
Wow.
Or picking up on your race or ethnicity based on your name?
Precisely. And that's what this research wanted to uncover.
Okay.
They zeroed in on something called name bias.
Okay.
Because, as you know, many chatbots ask for your name,
Right.
and often our names are linked to demographics.
So even if you're not explicitly telling the chatbot these things,
Right.
it might be making assumptions
Exactly.
based on your name alone.
Yeah.
Kind of like how people make snap judgments based on first impressions.
Right, right.
Except this is AI doing it.
Yeah.
So how did the researchers even go about testing this? We can't just climb inside these AI brains and see what's going on.
Absolutely. And it's not always straightforward.
Yeah.
These AI models are always learning and updating.
Right.
But in this case, the researchers focused on a specific period,
Okay.
late 2023 to early 2024,
Okay.
digging into a massive data set of real ChatGPT conversations.
Wow.
We're talking millions of interactions.
Okay, now that's some serious data crunching.
Yeah.
But just finding differences isn't enough, right?
Exactly.
What were they specifically looking for in these conversations?
They had a framework
Okay.
with three main areas of focus.
Okay.
First, they wanted to see if the chatbot gave better answers
Mm-hmm.
in terms of accuracy, clarity, that kind of thing,
Right.
to some names over others.
So basically, is the AI playing favorites?
Exactly.
Okay.
The second area was around harmful stereotypes.
Okay.
Are the responses even subtly reinforcing negative stereotypes?
Right.
For example, if you have a female-associated name,
Mm-hmm.
is the chatbot more likely to steer you towards traditionally female professions?
Those subtle biases are the ones that really fly under the radar,
Yeah.
but can be so insidious in the long run.
Right.
Okay, so that's two. What was the third thing they were looking at?
The third area focused on any consistent differences in how the chatbot responded to different groups.
Okay.
Things that might not be obvious in a single conversation,
Right.
but emerge when you look at the big picture,
Yeah.
like patterns and trends
Yeah.
that could indicate underlying biases.
With that framework in mind,
Yeah.
let's dive into their findings.
Okay.
What did they discover about how our names might be influencing our interactions with these chatbots?
Well, when it came to the quality of responses, like how accurate or helpful the chatbot was,
Right.
they didn't find any major differences based on gender,
Okay.
meaning whether the chatbot thought you were male or female
Mm-hmm.
didn't seem to impact the overall quality of the information it provided.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring, I guess.
Yeah.
But what about those harmful stereotypes and subtle differences we talked about? That's where things get really interesting, right?
Exactly.
Especially when we start looking at different types of tasks people are using these chatbots for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And this is where the research gets even more insightful.
Okay.
They found that when it came to open-ended or creative tasks,
Mm-hmm.
like story writing,
Yeah.
that's where some striking differences emerged.
Oh, really?
Specifically, the researchers discovered that earlier versions of ChatGPT
Okay.
showed a tendency to create protagonists whose gender matched the user's name.
So if I asked it to write a story and it thought I was female,
Right.
it would be more likely to make the main character female as well.
Exactly. And while that might seem harmless on the surface, think about the potential impact at scale.
Right.
If AI systems are constantly reinforcing existing gender norms and biases
Yeah.
in the stories they tell, that could have a big impact
Oh, yeah.
on our perceptions and expectations in the long run.
It's almost like those studies that found children's books were way more likely to show male characters in active roles,
Right.
while female characters were often stuck on the sidelines, subtle, but potentially influential.
Absolutely. The good news is, though, that later versions of ChatGPT showed less of this bias,
Right.
which just goes to show that if we're paying attention to the right things, AI development can actually address these problems.
That is a relief to hear. It sounds like there's a long way to go, but at least progress is being made.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, what about the other aspects of this, like those subtle differences we talked about?
Right.
Were there any other patterns that emerged from the research?
There were some fascinating findings when it came to the tone of the responses.
Okay.
They found that, on average, female-associated names received responses with slightly simpler language
Huh.
and a more encouraging tone.
Wow, that's really interesting. It's those subtle, almost subconscious cues that we really need to be aware of.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the AI is, without even realizing it, speaking to us differently based on our perceived gender.
Right.
Even if it's not directly saying, because you're a woman.
Precisely. It's those implicit biases creeping in, and they can be just as harmful
Right.
because they're much harder to pinpoint and address.
It's a good reminder to always stay vigilant. Now, we've covered gender quite a bit here.
Yeah.
But what about race and ethnicity? Did the research explore that at all?
They did. They looked at whether the chatbot responded differently to names commonly associated with different racial and ethnic groups: white, black, Asian, and Hispanic.
Okay.
However, this is where things get a little more complicated.
Oh, how so?
While they looked for differences in responses based on names associated with race and ethnicity,
Mm-hmm.
the AI analysis wasn't as reliable as with gender.
Really?
It seems the AI used to analyze the data had a harder time picking up on those subtle nuances when it came to race.
Hold on. So the AI analyzing the data had its own blind spots. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? But they still managed to find some differences,
There
right?
did, for example, responses to Asian-associated names were,
Hmm.
at least according to the analysis, rated as slightly more formal and structured.
Interesting. I wonder if that might be because of those stereotypes about Asian cultures being more formal or collectivist.
It's possible,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely warrants further investigation.
Yeah.
However, it's important to highlight that we need more research to back up these findings.
Okay.
The researchers themselves admitted that the AI analysis wasn't as robust when it came to race and ethnicity.
Okay.
So these initial observations should be taken with a grain of salt.
So they've opened a door to a whole new area of research, but we're just starting to peek inside. But that's what makes this so fascinating. It's like a scientific detective story.
I love that analogy. And beyond simply uncovering these biases, the research also explored ways to potentially mitigate them.
Okay.
Interestingly, the way chatbots remember your name can actually influence how prominent these biases are.
Wait, really? So how your name is stored in the AI system actually makes a difference?
You got ChatGPT has two ways of remembering your name.
Okay.
There's the memory feature,
Mm-hmm.
where it stores your name for use in current and future conversations.
Okay.
And then there are custom instructions, which let you provide a more detailed profile,
Okay.
including your name, to the AI.
So it's like giving the chatbot a little cheat sheet about yourself.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The research found that those harmful gender biases,
Okay.
at least as measured by the AI,
Mm.
were more noticeable when the chatbot used its memory feature compared to custom instructions.
Now that's unexpected. Any idea why that might be?
While we can't say for sure, it could be that custom instructions provide the AI with a more well-rounded picture of the user.
Hmm.
It's not just a name. It might be other details that counteract those initial, potentially biased assumptions connected to the name.
So if you told the chatbot you were, say, a female engineer, it might be less likely to jump to conclusions about your career aspirations based on your name alone.
Precisely. It suggests that providing the AI with more context about who we are as users can potentially help reduce those snap judgments based solely on our names.
That's actually quite hopeful. It means we might have more agency in shaping how these AI systems interact with us than we thought.
Yeah.
But even if these biases aren't always huge or glaringly obvious, it seems like this research raises some important questions about how we build and use these increasingly powerful AI systems.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's the main takeaway here.
Okay.
It's not about trying to catch AI being bad.
Right.
It's about realizing that even those unconscious, subtle biases can slip into these systems.
Yeah.
And as we depend more and more on AI for everything from information to creative tasks and even decision-making,
Right.
We need to be deeply aware of those biases and their potential impact.
And the researchers were sure to point out that these biases can be minimized, especially as AI technology continues to improve. They found that certain training techniques,
Yeah.
like something called reinforcement learning,
Right.
actually helped reduce bias in the chatbot's responses.
Yes. It's like we're teaching the AI to recognize its own biases and actively correct them.
Which I think reinforces the idea that we're not just passive users of AI.
Right.
We have a role to play in how it develops and how it impacts our world.
Exactly. And speaking of shaping development, the researchers went a step further
Okay.
and shared how other researchers can access and experiment with ChatGPT,
Okay.
including simulating its memory and custom instruction features.
So they're essentially inviting more research and collaboration to better understand and address these issues.
Precisely. It's like they're saying, look, we've unearthed some pretty interesting findings, but there's still a lot more to learn.
Right.
Let's work together to make these AI systems fairer and more beneficial for everyone.
Now that's what I call open science in action. We've talked about a lot of complex stuff here. But what does this all mean for you, our listener? Why should you care about something as theoretical sounding as first-person fairness in chatbots?
Well, just think about how much we already depend on these AI systems. We ask them for information, advice. We use them for creative inspiration. Their influence is only growing.
Right.
As these systems become more tightly woven into our lives,
Yeah.
those subtle biases, those almost invisible differences in how they treat us, can really accumulate.
Like a tiny leak that eventually becomes a flood, right?
Precisely, and goes beyond the individual impact. There's a societal impact as well.
Right.
If these AI systems are quietly reinforcing existing stereotypes and biases,
Yeah.
that could ripple outward, affecting everything from how we perceive gender roles to our career choices and even how we understand different cultures.
It's almost like we're unknowingly weaving these biases into the fabric of our digital world.
Exactly, and that's why this research is so crucial.
Yeah.
It's a call to action to pay closer attention to those subtle biases,
Mhm.
to hold both ourselves and these AI systems accountable,
Yeah.
and to work towards a more equitable and just digital future.
Beautifully said. For our listeners who are ready to dive even deeper, we'll be sharing links to the research paper and other resources in the show notes. But before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
what's one key takeaway, one big question you'd like our listeners to ponder as they go about their day interacting with these AI systems?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to this. As you interact with these chatbots, these AI systems, remember that even seemingly small details like your name can shape how they respond. Keep an eye out for those subtle cues, those patterns in how the AI interacts with you.
It's like the AI equivalent of a blind taste test, making sure we're getting an unbiased experience.
Exactly. We want these incredible tools to help us unlock new possibilities, not reinforce old patterns.
Well said. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Who knew our names could hold so much weight in the AI world?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Right.
It's a reminder that even as these technologies advance, we can't just sit back and let them shape our world on autopilot.
Right.
We have a role to play in understanding and guiding their development.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who are now just as hooked on this topic as we are,
Yeah,
we'll link you to the full research paper in the show notes.
definitely.
But before we sign off, any parting thoughts for our AI enthusiasts out there? What's the one thing you really want them to take away from this?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, I think, it'd be easy to walk away from this feeling like we need to be suspicious of every AI interaction.
Sure.
But I think the real message here is about empowerment. We have the ability to understand these systems, to ask tough questions,
Right.
and to advocate for AI that truly works for everyone.
I love that. Knowledge is power, and the more we know about how AI works, the better we can make it work for us.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street.
It absolutely is. So keep
Okay.
exploring, keep asking those what-if questions, and let's build a future where AI helps us become more fair and insightful, not less.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A huge thank you to our expert for illuminating this complex and, frankly, crucial topic.
Oh, of course, happy to be here.
And to our amazing listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious.